gun violence. This briefing is for press only. If you are not a member of the press, please log out and watch today's live stream on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook page or tune in to 900 AM or 96.1 FM WURD. We will begin our briefing with remarks by Mayor Jim Kenney. Mayor, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. First, as you may have seen last night, Philadelphia officers responded to a robbery in the 26th district. After encountering the suspect, that individual fired upon one of our officers. Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales will provide you with more information on this incident in a few minutes. For now, I will say that I'm thankful that the responding officers acted quickly, possibly saving countless other innocent bystanders from coming into harm's way. Let's keep all those involved in this incident in our thoughts and pray for their speedy recoveries. As we close in on the end of a year where we saw unprecedented levels of shootings and homicides, part of a disturbing trend nationwide, the city will continue to act with urgency to reduce violence and save lives. Today, I again want to acknowledge the hundreds of families that are mourning the loss of their loved ones, which we know is especially devastating during the holiday season. The senseless violence that is hurting Philadelphia must stop. We want to reiterate, as we did earlier this month, that there are resources available if you need help. Go to dbhids.org/boost to get resources for dealing with trauma and loss. You can also go to healthymindsphilly.org for free mental health resources and supports. The city also offers counseling and support which can be assessed by calling 888-545-2600. Interpretation services are available. Despite a very challenging year, I want to showcase some progress made over the past year as we confront the crisis. This year, with the passage of FY22 budget, we made a historic investment of $155 million into proven anti-violence strategies, including community violence intervention programs, enrichment opportunities, and safe havens for youth, including opening 2 community evening resource centers, expanding intensive prevention services, and increasing hours at recreation centers. Community-based prevention programs offering after-school and summer program opportunities to more than 25,000 children and youth. And in the coming year, we look forward to seeing the crucial work and outcomes of the 31 organizations doing on-the-ground anti-violence work in our communities. Organizations we're funding through the Anti-Violence Community Expansion Program, grant program developed in partnership with City Council. With this year's distribution of targeted community investment grants, this initiative has now funded a total of 170 projects with an estimated combined award of nearly $3 million. We continue to see progress with our Operation Pinpoint strategy, including overall reductions in violent crime within our Pinpoint grids in many districts throughout the city. Earlier this fall, the Philadelphia Police Department was selected to participate in the U.S. Department of Justice's National Public Safety Partnership. As part of this partnership, the Philadelphia Police Department will receive intensive training and technical assistance from the Department of Justice, which will greatly assist our local crime-fighting efforts. And PPD has taken a record number of guns off our streets this year. We're on track to remove about 6,000 crime guns from our streets. This is a 40% increase from 2 years ago. Each of these guns off the street is one less that could use to harm or kill someone. And most recently, the Philadelphia police made arrests related to a string of robberies across the city. We simply cannot and will not tolerate this violence. Our residents and visitors deserve to feel safe, and our police are committed to solving these crimes, arresting dangerous criminals, and creating a safer city for everyone. While these are just some examples of the progress we're making, we know that much more needs to be done to protect Philadelphians at every corner of our great city. It will take all of us working together, the criminal justice system, all levels of government, community and faith organizations, the business community and residents to create a safer city for us all. And as we approach 2022, we remain resolved in doing just that. This is our biggest priority. Before I turn it over, I want to wish everyone a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season and a great new year. Now for more details on where some of the anti-violence program stands towards the end of 2021, I'll now turn it over to Erica Atwood, Senior Director, Office of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for Criminal Justice and Public Safety. Erica?
Thank you, Mayor Kenney, and good afternoon, everyone. Want to just kind of highlight a number of the things that the mayor mentioned and do a deeper dive on a few of the programs that we've been getting questions about throughout the year to give you an update. As we close this year, we continue to see disturbing national trends of shooting and homicides, and 2021 has been challenging for all Philadelphians. Despite these challenges, we have persisted in prioritizing the reduction of gun violence across the city. In an era where we're still learning how to coexist with COVID-19, we continue to make progress in implementing the Roadmap to Safer Communities, our comprehensive 5-year strategy to reduce gun violence, focusing on programs and initiatives that are related to that support our key goals. And our key goals are connected and thriving young people, stronger community engagement, coordinated city services, and safe and healthy neighborhoods. The key to triage in our neighborhoods are our violence interrupted programs like our group violence intervention and our community crisis intervention program. Since the inception in August of 2020, our GVI program has made 3,287 home visits to individuals most at risk for engaging in gun violence. They've made 1,510 referrals to service providers for high-risk individuals, and there have been 521 custom notifications done by GVI. In addition to GVI, year to date, our Community Crisis Intervention Program, CCIP, has contacted 6,174 individuals and families that have been impacted by gun violence and conducted 318 mediations for situations that could have escalated to gun violence. We talk a lot about our investments, and these investments have been barrier breaking for community-led and community-based organizations through the continuation of our targeted community investment grants, as well as the anti-violence community expansion grants. Not only do these grants expand the reach and deepen the impact of prevention and intervention services, they will illustrate a continued need for direct investment in diverse community organizations, not only by the city, but by the philanthropic and corporate communities as well. In partnership with Commissioner Kimberly Ali and Deputy Commissioner Gary Williams, we have expanded opportunities for vulnerable youth by opening 2 new community evening resource centers, expanding intensive prevention services, and connecting youth in the community service and restitution program with positive community youth mentors through our Next Generation Task Force. As the mayor mentioned, this year we're on track to collect nearly 6,000 crime guns. We will remain steadfast in leveraging every avenue we have for the ability to control availability of guns in our communities in concert with the Philadelphia Legislative Caucus in Harrisburg. Also, I implore those who are struggling with loss, trauma, and violence, again, to take advantage of the Department of Behavioral Health and the Office of Domestic Violence's strategies that the mayor mentioned in his remarks. While there's been a lot of work that continues to be done in 2021 up until the last day, we do have things that we are looking forward to in 2022. We have already launched our feasibility study and landscape analysis with the goal of replicating the Ready Chicago model system in Philadelphia, which will better coordinate and expand existing resources for extremely high-risk individuals to connect them with positive influences, meaningful careers, and trauma supports. The pilot of this program will be implemented mid-2022. In mid-2022. Philadelphia is also a part of 16 jurisdictions committed to scaling and strengthening their community violence intervention infrastructure with the White House. We have worked with our technical assistance provider, the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, to complete our assessment, and we will be developing our plan in the new year. In partnership with the police department, we will be integrating the place network investigation strategy into our tactical meetings to expand support for environmental changes in our communities, like fewer fewer blighted buildings, cleaner abandoned lots, and better lighting to increase the sense of safety in neighborhoods and connectedness among neighbors, and reduce locations where illegal guns can be stored and where illegal activity occurs. We will also be announcing a new victim advocate and a new office for the city in early 2022. This office will focus on supporting victim-serving organizations, as well as advocating for those who are directly impacted by gun violence. Our commitment to a safer and a healthier Philadelphia is unwavering. We will continue to work on a daily basis in concert with key stakeholders in and outside of the city to reduce gun violence and make our children safe. With that, I will be available for questions, and I will hand it off to Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Patrol Operations. The loss that this city has experienced as a result of gun violence is truly reprehensible. Yesterday, our city saw 3 homicides, one on the 900 block of Rockland Street, a second one on the 4500 block of North Front Street, and the third homicide occurred on the 500 block of Rosalie Street. These were 3 lives that were cut unnecessarily short. And these victims are not just numbers. These are people whose loss will be felt by many and whose absence will be changed the makeup of the entire community. In addition to these homicides, there were also several shootings that took place yesterday, one which involved one of our very own. As Commissioner Outlaw discussed late last night, and also responding to a call for a robbery, was struck with gunfire in the right shoulder when he approached the offender on the 400 block of Harlan Street. This officer was transported to Temple Hospital and is listed in stable condition. And I am happy to report that the officer was discharged from the hospital approximately 40 minutes ago. So please keep him in your prayers. Last night, it was a chaotic scene. During this incident, a homeowner was struck by the offender's gunfire, and the offender shot himself in the head. Officers scooped the offender and the victim and transported them to Temple Hospital in separate vehicles. Unfortunately, the police vehicle that was transporting the offenders to the hospital became involved in a crash. Those officers were also injured, but thankfully are expected to recover. This incident highlights not only the dangers that officers face on the streets every day, but the restraint that the officers shown when facing dangerous individuals and their dedication to the preservation of life. These officers did not fire their weapons, deeming the safety of the public was at greater risk if they did fire their weapons. Further, as per our policy, they scooped and rushed the offender to the hospital for medical treatment. Given the chaos of the scene, I am thankful that there weren't more injured civilians or officers. I commend these officers for their courageous and quick actions. The officers did exactly what they were trained to do, and fortunately, there was no loss of life. Before I provide an update on our crime statistics, I want to briefly talk about an ongoing issue that we have been experiencing in our city practically every New Year's Eve. As soon as the clock strikes midnight, too many people think it's a good and harmless idea to fire guns into the air to help ring in and celebrate the new year. I can tell you, taking part in this highly dangerous and illegal activity is far from harmless and is never a good idea. You can be arrested and charged with weapon violation and recklessly endangering another person, which is also known as rape, if you engage in this illegal activity. Remember, what goes up must come down. When you fire a bullet into the air, whether straight or at a slight angle, those bullets will travel great distances. And when they land, often at speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, they can cause serious injury or even death to anyone in its path. Every year, a handful of people are killed around the country by these recklessly fired projectiles, and many more are seriously injured. In addition, countless homes and businesses are also damaged. So again, to make it perfectly clear, under no circumstances is it okay to fire guns into the air. We will have teams of officers on patrol, specifically on the lookout for such behavior, and we encourage anyone who witnesses this or any criminal activity to immediately call 911. So please ring in the new year in a safe way, enjoy a firework display, bang pots and pans together, but please just do not take part in reckless and illegal behavior. Speaking of reckless and illegal behavior, New Year's Eve is one of the biggest party nights of the year. And same as any other time, we will be on the lookout for individuals who are operating vehicles while under the influence. We could try to come up with a catchy message in order to inform everyone about the dangers of drinking and driving. Suffice it to say that driving under the influence is one of the absolute worst decisions you can make. Please, please, please don't drink and drive. Call a friend, call a cab, get an Uber or Lyft. Do whatever you have to do to keep yourself from getting behind the wheel. In a nutshell, this New Year's Eve, have fun, enjoy yourselves, but do so in a safe and responsible manner. Changing gears. For the past several months, we have discussed how a number of violent crime statistics are trending in the right direction. As you will see shortly, our Operation Pinpoint strategy is working, with significant decreases in violent crime throughout the multiple districts across the city. And while you will see decreases in violent crime, we know that provides very little comfort, as we have already seen record levels of both homicides and non-fatal shootings. We will remain committed and continue to do everything we can to stop the violence in our city. I will now provide updates on our crime statistics and then turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, and he will speak about cases we wish to highlight. Can you pull up the slides, please? Okay, all right. Can you make it a little bigger, a little larger? Maybe it's my video. Okay, there it is better. Okay, I will start with the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats. Looking at the top chart, year to date, as of December 19th of this year, Philadelphia had 540 homicides and 2,245 shooting victims. In comparison to last year, homicides are up 13%, 540 this year versus 476 last year, and shooting victims are up 3%, 2,245 this year versus 2,171 last year. Looking at the bottom left of the chart, it shows the motives for the homicides. They remain the same. Number 1, arguments, 2, drugs, and 3, domestics. But the top 2 are arguments and drugs. Next slide, please. This slide shows the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats weekly comparison from December 13th to December 19th. If you look to the right of the chart, we had 12 homicides, 47 shooting victims, which include homicides and multiple shooting victims. In reference to the multiple shooting victims, this week we had 3 triple shootings and 7 double shootings. Looking at the bottom of the column, it shows 33 shooting occurrences for the week. As of November 1st of this year, we are averaging 34 shooting occurrences a week. Shooting occurrence is an incident count where an individual or individuals were shot. So we're basically counting the incidents, not the number of shooting victims. Next slide, please. This slide shows the comparison between citywide homicides and homicides that occurred in the pinpoint grids. If you look at the top chart, it shows citywide homicides up 13%. Looking at the bottom chart, it shows homicides in the pinpoint grids at 0%. Next slide, please. This slide shows the comparison between citywide shooting victims and shooting victims in the pinpoint grids. Citywide shooting victims are up 3% and the pinpoint grids are down 16%. Next slide, please. Looking at the top of the chart, it shows citywide homicides down 14% and citywide shooting victims down 5% when comparing the current 4-week period from November 22nd to December 19th with the previous 4-week period from October 25th to November 21st. Looking at the bottom of the chart, it shows homicides down 6% and shooting victims down 5% in the pinpoint grids when comparing the current 4-week period with the previous 4-week period. Next slide, please. This slide shows the year in total VOOF arrests for 2017 from 2017 through 2020, and the total VOOF arrests year to date for 2021 from January 1st to December 19th. In 2020, we reached an all-time high for VOOF arrests that totaled 2,324. And so far this year, we have made 2,473 VOOF arrests. And I would like to point out that this time last year, we had 2,243 VOOF arrests, which is a 10% increase when compared to the year-to-date total. Next slide, please. As of December 20th of this year, 5,765 crime guns were recovered in our city. A crime gun is any gun recovered by the police as part of a criminal investigation, and this number does not include guns from buybacks or turn-ins. In 2020, we recovered 4,989 crime guns by the end of the year. Comparing that number to this year's number year to date, which again is 5,765, we are currently showing a 16% increase, which is 776 more crime guns recovered this year compared to last year from January to the end of December. If we continue at this rate, we will reach a total of 5,944 by the end of the year. Next slide, please. Looks like it's blacked out at the top in reference to the slides. I don't know if you see that or not, but I can see the numbers. Lastly, year to date, 557 privately made firearms, also known as ghost guns, were recovered in Philadelphia. I would like to point out that in 2020, a total of 250 ghost guns were recovered by the end of the year. As of December 20th, we have surpassed that number. This shows a significant increase in ghost guns recovered this year in comparison to 2020 and 2019. So I will now turn over to Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales. And today I want to start off my presentation by acknowledging the incredible bravery and professionalism that was demonstrated by our officer in responding to a robbery call last night and approaching a suspect and coming under gunfire. I've been able to see some of the video, and it is incredible the way the officer maintained a level of calmness and conducted himself and provided information that helped to lead to where the offender was located. So we are all grateful that the officer did not suffer more serious injuries and has been able to be released from the hospital and will recover at home. Now I want to also talk about addressing something the mayor had addressed in his initial remarks, the Center City Gunpoint robberies. As most of you are aware, last week on December the 15th, on Wednesday, we arrested 3 males in connection with the recent Center City Gunpoint robberies. I think I have, Kevin, if you have the slides, the first slide has the photos of the individuals that were arrested. We arrested 19-year-old Trevin Johnson. Yeah, go to the next slide. And the second male was 19-year-old Shaim Johnson. Now they're on your screen. And the third male was 22-year-old Terrence Mitchell. The males were charged with robbery, aggravated assault, conspiracy, a violation of the Uniform Firearms Act, and related offenses. They have been charged, they're in custody, and we are continuing to work diligently to investigate their involvement, possible involvement in additional crimes. And we do anticipate that there will be more arrests made in this series pattern of robberies in the near future. Moving forward, I'm going to provide arrest updates as I've been doing in the past. And since our last press conference, police have arrested 6 individuals who were wanted for committing homicides. In addition, I'll be featuring a few of the fugitives that are currently wanted for homicides that occurred earlier this year. And in closing, I will be highlighting 2 cases where we are asking for the public's assistance in help to identify the suspects. Following slides are, as I said, individuals recently arrested for homicide. I'm going to be starting with an incident from 2020. Last year, and continuing chronologically by the date of occurrence from the earliest to the latest of the 2021 homicides. The first person up on your screen, as you can see, is Michael Thompson. And on December 14th, 31-year-old Michael Thompson was arrested for the murder of 37-year-old Robert Lee. The incident occurred on September the 20th of 2020, more than a year ago. The incident occurred on the 3800 block of West Smedley Street. The incident appears to have stemmed from an argument. The next slide should be a picture of Amir Wharton. And on December the 10th, 18-year-old Amir Wharton was arrested for the murder of 20-year-old Sebastian Brown, an incident that occurred on May 8th of this year, 2021. It happened on the 1700 block of West Ruscombe Street. And it is believed that the motive for this homicide was retaliation. Next slide is a arrest photo of Nabria Watson. On December the 10th, 17-year-old Nabria Watson was arrested for the murder of 20-year-old Jabria Harris for an incident that occurred on October the 27th on the 4000 block of Old York Road. This murder appears to be retaliation also for a previous incident. And the next slide is a arrest photo of Joseph Baker. On December the 10th of this year, 62-year-old Joseph Baker was arrested for the murder of 55-year-old Margaret Lippy on an incident that occurred on the same day, December the 10th, on the 3000 block of Poplar Street. This was a domestic incident. And the photo you have on your screen now is a photo of Tammy Smith. On December 11th, 35-year-old Tammy Smith was arrested for the murder of 39-year-old Christopher Haley, an incident that occurred on December the 10th on the 3100 block of North Broad Street. The incident stemmed from a situation where Ms. Smith was apparently stealing from the victim and his family while she was staying with them. After being kicked out, Ms. Smith returned. When confronted by Christopher Haley, she shot and killed him. And the next photo is of Martin West. On December the 14th, 52-year-old Martin West was arrested for the murder of 69-year-old Paul Blassingame, an incident that occurred on December the 13th on the 5200 block of West Clarkson Street. The motive for this incident was an argument between the two who were at the time roommates. Now I'm going to be featuring a number of suspects who are currently wanted for homicides, and hopefully through the media, we are be able to get the word out. We're asking for the public's assistance in locating these individuals. First on the screen is we have Donald Whittingham. He's wanted for the murder of 16-year-old Khalif Myrick that occurred on February the 18th on the 2900 block of South 70th Street. The incident appears to have stemmed from words that were exchanged between Mr. Whittingham and Mr. Myrick inside of a convenience store. Whittingham waited outside of the store for the victim to exit, and when he did, Whittingham shot Myrick. I know that on the YouTube channel, we have video of this incident that had been previously posted, and now we have a warrant for Mr. Whittingham. Now you have a wanted photo of Brian Uceda Nunez. 26-year-old Brian Uceda Nunez is wanted for the murder of 32-year-old Juan Lopez, along with shooting another victim who survived for an incident that occurred on April the 5th on the 400 block of West Ansbury Street. The motive for this homicide appears to be a physical altercation that escalated into gunshots. Next on the screen is Walter Lowry Hicks. 28-year-old Walter Lowry Hicks is wanted for the murder of 28-year-old Jose Miguel Lopez that occurred on April 13th on the 5200 block of Burton Street. The incident stemmed from a prior confrontation between the victim and the offender. Now on your screen is 18-year-old Basir Gillette. He's wanted for the murder of 16-year-old Kwamir Mitchell and another victim who survived. The shooting occurred on May 13th in the 5600 block of Grays Avenue. Motive for the homicide was an argument over a basketball game. Next is 21-year-old Donald Motley. He's wanted for the murder of 46-year-old Tone Nguyen, who was murdered on August the 14th on the 6700 block of Woodland Avenue. The incident appears to have stemmed from an argument. And finally, we have a photo of 24-year-old Dion Ferguson, who is just recently, a warrant was issued, and he's wanted for the murder of 29-year-old Levon Colbreth that occurred on November the 23rd on the 2200 block of 62nd Street. The motive for the incident appears to have been an argument. Dion Ferguson was identified after video was put out publicly on the YouTube channel. And again, as I mentioned in a previous one, this is why we put the videos out to the public. We do get help from the public in identifying these subjects. It's greatly appreciated. And I think this case can really serve as an example of how video is so crucial in evidence that can greatly assist in us solving these cases. Anyone with information pertaining to these suspects' whereabouts is urged to call the homicide unit at 215-686-3334. Or they can always call our tip line at 215-686-TIPS. That's 686-8477. I'm going to finish by highlighting two homicide cases where we are asking for public's assistance in identifying the suspects involved. One is a double homicide, And this was a horrific crime. It was an arson crime that occurred in November. 2 innocent men were brutally murdered. The second one is an execution that occurred in October. The one on your screen is we're looking for this individual holding that can that was containing an accelerant of a fluid that was used to get the fire going. This was the double homicide by arson that occurred on November the 11th in the 1400 block of West Jerome. He was observed obtaining gasoline at a nearby gas station minutes before the fire was started at a private residence, killing 2 males that were inside of that residence. The suspect was wearing a mask, gray hooded puffy jacket, black pants, brown loafers. Anyone with information, please call our tip line or the homicide unit, 686-3334, or the tip line, 686-TIPS. And finally, we have on the screen video that is going to be from an incident that occurred on October the 22nd, about 3:44 inside of a store in the intersection in the area of 50th and Arch Street. The suspect, who you see on the screen now, entered the store. He shot a 38-year-old customer in the head at very close range. There's some distinctive features about his shirt, his hat, and anybody who has information, there he is with the gun, walked up to the victim, shot him in the head. Again, he's described as a black male with tattoos on his upper and lower right arm. He was wearing a Boston Red Sox baseball hat over his black skull cap. He had a neck gaiter, black t-shirt, multicolored, we called it a baby Yoda design, black baggy pants, dark work boots. He also had a black hooded sweatshirt with white drawstring draped over his arm. You can see him with the gun. Hopefully someone out there will see this video and recognize this individual and provide the information that's necessary to identify this person and get an arrest warrant for this horrific case. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Kevin. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now move to Q&A for members of the press. Because of limited time, only one representative from each media outlet is permitted to ask questions, so we ask that you coordinate beforehand. Reporters are asked to limit their questions to 2 or fewer for the first round. Today, we are limiting topics in the first round to questions related to these presentations or remarks. If there is time for a second round, we'll open it up to more questions on other topics. Armando is available for Spanish interpretation as needed. So with that, we will go to Lauren Winfrey of NBC 10.
Hi, how are you guys? I just have 2 things that I'd like to confirm. First of all, you said there were 3 homicides Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay. And then which officer was released from the hospital this afternoon?
The officer that was shot was released this afternoon. The other 2 officers that were injured in the crash had been previously released. So all of our officers, thankfully, have been released from the hospital and they are at home.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren. You all set? All right, we'll now go to Alicia Reed of CBS 3.
Thank you so much for taking my question. My first question may be for Erica Atwood. You'd mentioned the centers that have been opened for teenagers, right? Since their opening, have you had any numbers as far as the amount of teens that are being reached? Have you seen a difference with before they opened as opposed to since they've been open?
We'll have to get back to you on that, Alicia. We'll get that information from Department of Human Services and Commissioner Ali and her team to be able to tell you what the intake and utilization rates have been for our new evening resource centers or evening curfew centers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And my last question is for Mayor Kenney. We were in the neighborhood today following up on last night's shooting of that officer and homeowner. And for the homeowner, there's still blood on the street. Neighbors are shaken up. Is there anything that you can advise neighbors right now who are afraid? For example, the homeowner that stepped in to help officers, point out the shooter to officers, ended up getting shot. Should he have stayed inside his house instead of stepping outside to help? Like what kind of advice can you offer?
I clearly wasn't there to really judge what anybody did right or wrong. I know that the officers were on the scene, so it was not an issue of police coverage. I know the officers who transported the decedent to the hospital, I think were highway officers or SWAT officers. They transported a person who shot one of their fellow officers, and none of the police discharged their weapons, as was reported earlier. I would say that people should be involved as much as they think they can safely be involved, and most of that would be by telephone and by giving us information. We don't really need your name or your personal information if that makes you feel more comfortable. And I will check and see whether or not there's any follow-up that the city can do relative to the crime scene itself. Whether it's still being processed, I'm not really sure. That would be Deputy Commissioner Nash would know that better. Sometimes things can't get cleaned up as quickly as we like because there's still processing going on. It's a dangerous situation. Thankfully, no civilian was killed and no police officers were killed. And again, too many people have too many guns. As I said earlier in my remarks, we're going to probably surpass 6,000 illegal guns coming off the street. And it's over now, but I pass by billboards every day on 95 and 76 touting gun shows out in Oaks, Trooper, Pennsylvania at the convention center. So, I mean, I think that people should do what they feel is they can safely do to help us, and we appreciate their help.
Yeah, and if I may add to what the mayor was saying, Isabel, the actions of the neighbor, I think, were just being a good citizen. In fact, the individual that helped out the police to locate the suspect responsible for shooting the officer was inside of a house. The shots were fired from outside into the doorway. I don't think anybody could have anticipated that even from the safety of within the house, that person would come under gunfire. We were clearly dealing with a very dangerous individual, and we're grateful that more people weren't hit by any gunfire. And as I indicated, the officer's actions were just amazing under the situation. He remained calm, and at any time, we're dealing with a challenge situation throughout the city. The neighbors all came out. They heard from the video, we could see that there were neighbors that came out to help the officer. And I think they were just doing what good people do, recognizing that an officer was on the street talking to the radio saying he was shot, and he was in need of assistance. And the police got there as fast as they could, but the neighbors stepped in. So I'm proud of the way the city and the neighbors from that area responded. I just think that it's about doing the right thing. I don't think that anybody should be any more scared than the way things are. They're challenged right now, and we're working to get them in a better place. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alicia. We'll now go to Isabel Sanchez from Telemundo 62. Isabel?
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Armando. Las mismas preguntas que te envié. Me gustaría conocer en español lo último sobre el incidente caótico que estamos refiriendo en la calle Lithgow y cuál es el estado de salud del sospechoso y del vecino que fue baleado, por favor.
This question is for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking audience, and we would like to know what is the latest update on the chaotic incident that took place last night on Lithgow Street, and what is the health status of the suspect and of the neighbor who was shot?
Yeah, I'll take that. The latest is that there were a total of 3 people that suffered gunshot wounds. Our police officer, in responding to a report of a robbery, encountered a suspect that turned into a shooting incident where the suspect is observed firing multiple shots at our police officer. The officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Fortunately, he was shot in the shoulder. He was taken to Temple Hospital and treated by a great staff there. And as we indicated earlier, he has been treated and released within the last hour or so, and he will be resting at home. During the course of trying to identify and apprehend the person responsible for shooting that officer, other responding officers were led to a area on Lawrence Street, on the 1400 block of Lawrence Street, where a neighbor contacted the responding officers and let them know that somebody was in the yard behind his house. When the officers went to check out the person back there, possibly being the suspect, there were shots that were fired into the back of the house, and the owner of the home was struck in the leg. He was also transported to Temple Hospital. He was in stable condition. I don't have whether he's still in the hospital or not at this time. And when the officers were able to go into the back, they located the individual as the suspect, and he was suffering from what we believe is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was immediately lifted, scooped, and placed into a police car. He was being rushed to Temple University Hospital. Unfortunately, while he was en route to the hospital, the officer, trying to get there as fast as he could, came in contact with another vehicle, and there was an automobile crash. There were two officers in that police car. One was in the back, providing assistance to our suspect. Both of the officers and the suspect were transferred to other vehicles, and they were taken to Temple University. The officers from the police car were treated at the hospital last night. They were released, and the suspect is still in critical but stable condition at Temple University Hospital. That's it.
Isabel, tenemos el incidente que ocurrió en el cual 3 personas resultaron con heridas de bala, y esto se dio tras que un oficial respondiera a una llamada por un robo que se estaba dando, y se dio un tiroteo. Ellos observaron a un sospechoso y hubieron múltiples disparos. En estos momentos los oficiales no han tenido heridas que amenacen sus vidas. Uno de ellos le dispararon en el hombro y fue al hospital de Temple, donde su gran plantel le dio un buen cuidado y le dieron de alta, tengo entendido, hace poco, en la última hora, y él está en casa ahora descansando. Obviamente, los oficiales que quedaron allá trataron de identificar al sospechoso y fueron asistidos por otros oficiales cuando recibieron un aviso de un vecino en el bloque 1400 de la calle Lawrence, donde el vecino reportó que en su jardín o detrás de su casa se encontraba una persona. Cuando los oficiales se acercaron para verificar si este era el sospechoso, se soltaron tiros en la parte de atrás de la casa, le hirieron al propietario en la pierna. Él se encuentra en una condición estable y en estos momentos no sé si se le ha dado de alta o no todavía. Luego, obviamente, el sospechoso fue encontrado más adelante con lo que parece ser una lesión que se infligió él mismo al dispararse, y fue llevado inmediatamente al vehículo de los oficiales, donde un oficial estaba dando ayuda en el asiento trasero, y desgraciadamente este vehículo que portaba a 2 oficiales chocó con otro vehículo. Estos ambos fueron trasladados a otro vehículo y fueron llevados al hospital de Temple, donde se les ha dado tratamiento y se les dio de alta también. El estatus en este momento del sospechoso que se disparó a sí mismo es crítico, no sabemos más por el momento. Gracias.
Gracias, Armando. Mi segunda pregunta es saber cuál sería el plan de seguridad para Navidad de Año Nuevo, si la policía va a tener más oficiales, más patrullas en las calles.
The second question is, what is the city's plan for Christmas and New Year's? Will there be additional patrols on the streets?
Deputy Commissioner Dale?
Yes. For the holidays, we are ensuring that the officers are vigilant and paying close attention to our problematic areas, especially our pinpoint grids for the holidays. We are prepared for the Mummers Parade and also for the New Year's Eve. We call it a gunshot detail, which I mentioned earlier about those individuals who like to celebrate New Year's Eve, the incoming of the New Year's by shooting their weapons into the air. So we are going to be in our problematic areas. We are paying close attention to data and past experience where these gunshots were detected last year and the year prior. So we will be out there.
Sí, nosotros queremos asegurarnos que tenemos o que tengamos una temporada de Navidad y Año Nuevo saludable y segura. Vamos a desplegar mayor número de oficiales en las calles y vamos a permanecer vigilantes viendo los puntos críticos donde se da esto. También vamos a ofrecer cobertura durante el desfile de los Mummers y para la celebración del Año Nuevo. Obviamente hemos tenido un problema en los últimos años con la descarga de tiros al aire para celebrar estas festividades y nosotros vamos a prestar atención muy detallada a los datos que tenemos donde en los 2 últimos años se han dado estos disparos. Por lo tanto, esperamos tener una presencia policial que satisfaga las necesidades de seguridad de la ciudad. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Armando. Thank you all.
Thanks, Isabel. We'll now go to Saj Purple Blackwell of Community Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. My first question is for the mayor. There has been a recent call of action for many of the boots on the ground organizations who have been funded to come together. We were wondering, would you consider actually, Mayor Kenney, helping or creating a convening of all of these boots on the ground who receive funding to kind of maybe put together a joint plan to attack gun violence? Is that something that you would consider or be interested in?
Certainly would consider it, but Erica, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll take this.
Maybe that might be in the works.
So part of what we're doing particularly for the community expansion grants, is we are working with them to not only evaluate the grant program, but provide them with tools to elevate the efficacy of their programs and help them build their own evaluation tools. We're also providing technical assistance to deepen their impact and expand their capacity. Through that, there will be a natural cohort model that allows for collaboration organically and structured through our TA to identify what the needs are, how they can support each other as peers, and how we can support the community writ large, especially those who are the most vulnerable to gun violence. And so it is part of the overarching plan to bring everybody together at the table to not only support them, but also organically begin to build and strengthen strategies on the ground for our communities. And also, as a reminder, folks are in different funding priorities and do different types of work. And so we do have those who are specifically dealing with behavioral health, those who are doing safe havens and mentorship, those who are doing restorative justice. And so we're working through all of those to figure out the alignment.
Thank you, Erica. And in regards to the mayor, because this was in regards to your statement saying that, you definitely feel, maybe even said that people were saying that you're not actually, caring or involved enough, Mr. Mayor. So that's why I was kind of asking you, would you actually consider yourself being a part of that organization?
The answer is yes.
Thank you very much. And then Commissioner Dales, I guess, or in regards to the pinpoint areas and the shootings going down, as you know, and in the pinpoint areas that have already been identified, and with there being new shootings, across the city, are we again shifting the pinpoint areas? Are we changing what have used to be the pinpoint areas to the new pinpoint areas? How are we working on that?
So we are maintaining our pinpoint areas. So what you're talking about pretty much is somewhat, it can either be displacement, or we see in other areas, which we call our hotspots, where crime is starting to pick up in those zones. We don't ignore those zones. We actually, the way we police the pinpoint grids, we police those areas the same. We get assistance from our local, state, and federal partners. We run law enforcement initiatives within those problematic areas. And again, outside the pinpoint zones, not just in the pinpoint grids, but outside as well. We work with Erica Atwell and her group, who focuses on the environmental issues that are conducive to crime. So we definitely focus on, we call those hotspots, pretty much what you're talking about, Ms. Purple.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all, and try to have a good, happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now go to Chris Palmer of the Inquirer.
Just a couple quick questions about last night's shooting. Are you prepared to identify either the officer who was shot or the suspect who's in custody?
So, Chris, we are not going to identify the suspect at this time. That we're still in the process of formal charges, and until that happens, we're not going to do that. And the officer's information, generally, that'll be up to the officer if he wants to have that out. So at this time, we're not releasing his particular information. It may or may not be released in the future.
You had mentioned at one point that the homeowner who was shot, there were like bullets shot through the house, and the suspect was in the backyard. Can you just give a little more detail about how that happened?
Yeah, so as we have it at this still preliminary stage, the officers were informed that the suspect had been in the rear yard area of a residence on the 1400 block of Lawrence Street. So the suspect was in the backyard, which is consistent with the flight of travel from the location of where the officer was shot. We have video that shows him cutting through an alleyway, which puts him in the backyard area. And as the homeowner was still inside of his house with police officers inside of the house and other officers outside, as they were going towards the rear yard outside, shots rang out into the back entranceway area of the house. And that's where a bullet struck the homeowner and how he got injured. Officers were just there and felt they were also coming under fire. They took cover. In fact, one of the officers who was right alongside with the homeowner informed me last night that he grabbed a hold of the homeowner, pulled him to a safe area of cover so that he would not take any more gunfire, and then applied first aid immediately and made sure that individual was taken to the hospital, and he was fortunately suffering non-life-threatening injuries. It was a chaotic situation last night. The whole thing was within about a 2-block area, but our suspect remained back in the alleyway, and the officers set up a perimeter. They did an amazing job of covering the area, and ultimately, through assistance from the public, they were given information about where the individual might be, and then they came under additional gunfire. And they showed, as Deputy Dale said, amazing level of restraint. Nobody fired back into that. And then they heard another gunshot, and that's when they went in and saw that the individual we have as a suspect was suffering from a gunshot wound, self-inflicted.
And that self-inflicted gunshot wound, so you think that happened after he had fired into the house toward the homeowner, is that right?
That's correct.
And you said it was to the head, is that right?
That's correct.
Do you suspect that to be, was it intentional?
I'm not going to speculate at all at this point. I'm confident that I can tell you we've recovered a weapon from back there, and we still have a lot of investigating work to do regarding the ballistics and other forensics. So right now, I can just tell you that no officers fired their weapons. There was nobody else out there firing a gun. So all logical deductions at this point lead us to believe he fired the weapon, and then we took him to the hospital.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We do have about 8 minutes left on for today, so we will open it up. If anyone has any additional questions for this afternoon, we have about 8 minutes. We'll be able to get to a few. So, we'll go back to Lauren Winfrey.
Hi. So this gunman, he is expected to survive. And sorry if I missed this, but what condition is he in right now?
Lauren, I don't have his medical condition beyond he's listed at this time in critical but stable condition. I don't have the particulars. He did suffer a gunshot wound to the head, so I don't know what kind of condition beyond critical at this time regarding his future. We'll get some updates as we can from the hospital, but right now we've been informed he's critical but stable.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. We'll now go to Manny Smith of CBS 3. Manny?
Thank you guys for having these briefings. Just wanted to double check, and I think the mayor alluded to it a little bit. This is the last briefing for the year. On the record, do you commit to picking these back up again for next year?
Yes.
All right, cool. And then again, I think Alicia was trying to get to a core of it, Mayor. You know, we've talked a lot on this call. I'm a city resident too. I think people generally are fearful. What's your year-end message? Like at the end of the day, since we won't see you until January necessarily in this form, hey, are things getting better? Are we trying things new? What should the residents who are holding on, who want to still live in the city, what are the takeaways for us to start thinking about the rate of crime?
Well, I think things are getting better. I mean, certainly it's a bit of a trudge, and it's coming slower than any of us would like. But we are making some headway in the social service side of it, and on the policing side of it. Again, with the confiscation of guns and the 4,000 VUFA arrests that we've made. The $155 million expenditure is less than a year, into it. And we will continue to plug away at it and try again with other types of opportunities to our lawsuit against the Commonwealth, so we can get some common sense gun laws and control. It is moving forward. And I think that I'm hoping that 22, and I think that 22 will be a better year than 21. A lot of this, has to do with the mental mindset of everyone based on 20 some months of this pandemic, lockdown, masking, vaccination, death. A lot of this has, is made this exacerbated this situation. And I thought we were getting through into a better place with COVID, but apparently we're going to weather another tough winter without the same amount of death, hopefully. And I don't think it's indicative that there's going to be as much death as there was in the beginning. But yeah, there's a lot of tough times going through, and I wish I had magic answers to everything. I would have employed them by now.
Thank you for the candid answer.
Thanks, Manny. And we have time for one final question, so we'll go back to Isabel Sanchez at Telemundo.
Thank you so much. It's just a quick clarification. Where was the suspect found? Was it in a neighbor's backyard? Was it in the alley when they found him with the gunshot in the head?
It was in the backyard. It was in the backyard of where he was, where we got the information that he was located. So it's in the area of where an alley is. But it was behind a house on the 1400 block of Lawrence Street.
Se le encontró al sospechoso en el porche trasero de la casa, tras un jirón o un callejón que está en el bloque 1400 de la calle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel. Seeing no further questions, that concludes today's briefing. We'll reconvene after the holidays. Happy holidays, everyone, and take care. Thank you.